Hi. It's been a long time since I've shown my face. And I don't want to do it today, but I just feel like I needed to be able to have my hands free to read. So I came on here today to, well, hi everybody. Hi. To talk about the 3 different harvests and how that applies to us as a body. And I believe some of the things that he's shown me, and then some of the things that he's shown me in dreams that I feel like are starting to kind of fit together and make sense. So I'll start out with saying that I had a dream about twins. Now, this has been like maybe, I think it was like the summer before last, because I was really hot and I went up to Minnesota. And well, I went to Minnesota after he gave me the dream of the twins, because I would ask him where I should go, and then I had that dream. So I thought for some reason I had connected the dream with where I should go. So I went to the Twin Cities, which actually was good, because there was a heat wave, and it was like 100 and something degrees everywhere, even in Iowa, which is where I'd went to thinking it would be cool, and it was friggin' 100 degrees. So, and I didn't have air. Story of my life, right? Because even when I get it, for some reason, it just stops working. So, long story, let's keep it short. I had the dream about the twins. I woke up, I ended up going to the Twin Cities. Well, I quickly realized I don't think that's what he meant by it. And so I was up north of there, and up in a really beautiful place in Minnesota. But I had went to sleep, I went to sleep. I went up there for that reason, and I kept thinking about it, and then I remembered that Rebecca had twins, and that was supposed to be my name. So I thought that was interesting, but I believe that he's shown me that the twins have to do with the baby's birth in Revelation 12, which, hold on, I'll read that, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I didn't have that one marked, I forgot. So how you guys doing? You hanging in there? Through the midst of persecution and suffering, hardships, and just overall despair. But we don't have despair, do we, like the world gets, right? We don't. We might get sad for a little bit, but we get over it. Okay, Revelation 12. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. And we know that we've seen this, or we're pretty confident that we've seen it September 23rd, 2017. The woman in heaven with the sun and the moon under her feet, or clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she cried with child. She cried, and she being, yeah, spit it out. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns under his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up into God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there for 1,260 days. Okay, and then it goes on to talk about, how Michael and his angels had kicked him out, okay, of heaven. And I'm not going to read it all, because all of it is not. I just wanted to read the part about the child being called up. Okay, so we know from Scripture that, in 1 Thessalonians, that it tells us that that wicked will be revealed after the restrainer is removed and the child being called up to heaven. And they're saying, well, it says a man-child, that's Jesus. No, it's referring to the end times, because it says that he's cast out of heaven, okay, and he's standing before the woman to devour the child. So he's we know that they have a plan to kill the child. Okay, so it has double fulfillment. Prophecy has a lot of fulfillments. Like the same prophecy can have 3 or 4 fulfillments. We know that it is Jesus, but it's also us, because he's the head, we're the body, right? So it's the same man-child. It's just the head or the body. Sorry, I'm thirsty. Okay. So, I believe that's what the twins dream is about. I believe it's the dream about the birth of the child that gets called up to heaven, and then the birth of the sons of God on this earth, which are the sealed workers of God. That's what I believe. Or it could be the barley and the wheat. It's a separation of 2 groups. Okay, and the barley and the wheat, all right, because there's a lot of confusion in the body of Christ about this. The wheat kind of gets mad at the barley and doesn't want the barley to be barley, and the barley's mad at the wheat because the barley's going, look, man, I'm not wheat, okay? Leave me alone, right? We're not, it's not that we're not the same, we're the same. But you're wanting me to do what you're supposed to do, and I don't want to do what you're supposed to do. I want to do what I'm supposed to do, right? So there's a little bit of confusion there, and I think it leads to people, making judgments, especially of the barley. Like, the barley's not barley, because it should be wheat. Remember, he tells us about this. He warns us of this, about sporting ourselves against the other parts of the body. Right? Because you don't know what that part is, and you don't understand its function. And so you're not supposed to be worried about its function. You're supposed to be worried about your function and doing what you're supposed to do, so that the body will be doing everything it's supposed to do. So I think that's been a lot of the arguing and fighting has been between barley and wheat. I really do. Because they think because they're one thing that they have to make that other person the other thing, and it doesn't work like that. Everything is the way he made it to be, and it's done for a purpose. There's a reason for everything, right? And Ecclesiastes tells us that there's a time and a season for everything under heaven. There's the time for all these things, and so he makes people to fit into these things in the way he wants them to fit, because he is the master workman, right? He's creating masterpieces, but he's the one that does it. He is the creator, not us, right? We're just supposed to do what we're designed to do. So, but that being said, the winnowing of the barley and the wheat harvest. Now, the winnowing of the barley is the ruach blowing on the barley, right? It's in barley harvest, in the days of the times of the writing of the Bible, of our holy word, was that they would pick the barley up and they would blow on it. Or they may have used something that they come up with, to make kind of wind or something at that time. I'm not sure, but I know that they did blow on it. And the wind, because the barley is not a hard substance, it doesn't have a hard head, you can blow the chaff right off of it. It blows right off. It's not a problem. It just blows, right? But with wheat, it has a harder surface around its head, and because of that, it has to be put on something, and for it to be removed manually with friction and with pressure, which is called, they used a tribulum board, okay, to remove the chaff from the wheat. And not because the wheat was bad, right? It's not because the wheat is bad or that the wheat don't belong to God. It's because the wheat is harder. It's a harder outside shell, which makes it able to go through these things that are coming without giving in, right? Whereas barley would maybe not be able to, because barley is soft and not able to be put through. If you put barley on a tribulum board, it would destroy the barley. It would totally destroy it. It would be disintegrated and powder. It would not be able to tolerate that type of pressure. When you go to put it, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember washing boards, or if anybody was ever poor enough to use one. But when I was growing up, we were poor, and they would take the clothes out to the wash house, and they would, when I was a little kid, and they would still do it. But sometimes they would take, if it was just a small load, you know, they would take it out there and do it. We had a pump well, and they would get water, and they would just put whatever it was on that washboard and wash it, right? And then rinse it out in the well water, and then hang it up on the clothesline. See? And so a tribulum board is similar to that in the sense that it causes pressure, friction, and that's what separates, without totally smashing it down with a hammer, right? And I'm going to get into that next. With the pressure and the friction on the board, the dirt was loose from the clothes. Well, when you take the wheat and you do it on the board, it removes the chaff from the wheat, but it doesn't totally crush the wheat. But if you blow on wheat, it don't separate nothing. See what I mean? So it has to be done this way. There's crops. God plants crops, and He plants them the way He wants them to be. Okay? But we know that an enemy sow tares, and that's what I'm going to talk about too, is that there's a grape harvest. And sorry about that, you guys. And the grape harvest is the tares. Okay? And at the end, the wheat are separated from the tares, and the tares are slammed. They're put. Grapes are harvested by taking the grapes. I'm talking about back then. Of course, they do it different now. But you would put it in a I forget what they're called now, right off the top of my head. But they would stomp on the grapes until they got all the juice out of them. Right? In order to make it wine, they would stomp on the grapes. Alright? And this is what's going to happen at the end. The grapes will be harvested by stomping. Okay? And that's not, of course, that's not the portion of the people of God at all. Right? You're either in wheat or you're in barley.